Hi everyone, Sid here, back in the bathroom, ready for another shaving rant. Today, I'd like to get back to what I consider to be important topics as opposed to, geeking out on Captain America or anything flat earth related, basically. And I would like to do so by opening one of the tangents that I kind of left closed during my video comparing Bernie Sanders to Donald Trump. And by the way, while this is on my mind, I just want to add a clarification. I'm no longer sure what Bernie Sanders' stance is on holding gun manufacturers accountable for crimes committed with their guns. I was sure that I had heard him say this in a debate, but during the last Democratic debate, he and Clinton were arguing about it, and it kind of sounded like he didn't, so I'm no longer sure what his position is. Has no real bearing on the overall message of that video. So, I will, as I mentioned, go into the issue of gun control. Now, like I said, I had the broad lines of this discussion on gun control. It happened shortly after the Paris attacks in November, and as I mentioned in my first video after that attack, I make a point of not really speaking about things too vocally when I'm still in shock over something. I guess I learned my lesson from the admittedly pretty stupid things that I said in the wake of the Batman theater shooting. But it doesn't stop me, obviously, from having these conversations in private. And I had a friend over, he was here over there in my living room, and we were talking about it, and it's really tragic but predictable how whenever a mass shooting occurs, the reactions of people on both sides of the gun rights versus gun control issue are so predictable. Like the pro-gun rights people will be like, arm everybody, and the pro-gun control people will be like, disarm everybody. And it's really, there are no obvious answers, and I'll say that a couple times throughout this video, but I was discussing it with my friend in my living room. As I said, we were talking about the Paris attacks, and that's when I spontaneously said these three sentences that kind of summarized my position on gun rights. And it was so good that I said it spontaneously within the conversation. And then I kind of paused a bit, and then I said, wait a minute, what I just said is gold. Let me just repeat it just to make sure that I can recall it at a future time. So, here are the three sentences. Anyone sane wants to prevent anyone insane from getting access to guns. Anyone insane who wants a gun and is motivated enough to get a gun will get a gun. And the best way to protect us from insane people with guns is to make it as easy as possible for sane people who want guns to get them. And I was thinking about those three sentences in preparation for this video, and I realized that in most cases you can pretty much substitute sane and insane for good and bad, but I'm gonna continue to use sane and insane, especially considering, sadly, most people have really shitty standards for what good and bad is. Now, if you disagree with the first two sentences, I don't know what to tell you. The fact that there are drugs in prisons is kind of proof enough that even with the strictest gun control laws, you're not going to stop people who want guns and are willing to break the law from getting them. But the third sentence is where I can at least understand someone disagreeing. I'm going to start by parroting a point that Stefan Molyneux made a while ago, which I think is really valid and important to keep in mind for this conversation, which is, if you favor gun control, you are not anti-gun, because you will need guns to grab the guns from people who have them. So basically, by saying that you support gun control, you're in favor of gun centralization, really. You want the guns to be more and more concentrated within the hands of fewer and fewer people. And I would tie that into my three-sentence position by basically saying people who are in favor of gun control basically want the only people who have guns to be cops and soldiers. And some people don't even want the cops to be armed. And honestly, within the context of a state, I could see how there might be an argument for that. But I'm really in favor of making it as easy as possible for people who are sane and who want guns to get them. And it's funny too. I'm going to, before going off into what I thought I was going to get into, I want to bring up a point that I've made in conversation many times. It's that if you support gun control, you don't really believe in the right to self-defense. And I will illustrate that by saying, like, people who support gun control and who claim to favor self-defense, they're basically saying, I want you to defend, I want you to be able to defend yourself, but if you're attacked by someone with a gun, well, you're on your own. Good luck with that. That person wasn't supposed to have a gun, and yeah, too bad for you. And I think that's a metaphor that I came up with to illustrate how silly that is. It's like saying, I want you to be healthy, and I support you getting all the medical attention that you need to cure any disease or physical ailment that could possibly affect you, unless you get kidney cancer. If you get kidney cancer, well, too bad. It's a shame. You weren't supposed to get kidney cancer. We took a whole bunch of precautions to make sure that you never get kidney cancer. So hey, if that happens, good luck with that. And now I can get into what I thought I was going to get into earlier, which is to mention a series of sketches that was done on The Daily Show by Jordan Klepper, who's probably my favorite Daily Show correspondent. That guy's awesome and hilarious. And Klepper, that series, it had the goal to challenge the notion that the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun, which is one of those sentences you hear a lot from people who support gun rights. And the funny thing is, he, without going into detail in that series of sketches, he interviewed an FBI agent who did a study of, I believe it was over 100 active shooter situations in the United States. And I gotta admit, as far as the mission they set out for themselves is concerned, I think they succeeded. There are other things that can stop a bad guy with a gun than a good guy with a gun. And actually, a surprising amount of those mass shootings were stopped by an unarmed person who was on the scene. And I was fascinated enough that I did something that probably well, almost nobody who saw that sketch actually did, which was, I read the damn PDF document. And I was originally planning on making a separate video where I dissect it. If you still want me to, leave a comment below, let me know, but I don't think it'll be necessary. I'll give the main takeaway that I got from reading that report. It is true that a surprisingly large amount of mass shootings were stopped by an unarmed person who was on the scene. I think it was something like 10%. It would have to be a surprising amount because I off the top of my head, I can't imagine an unarmed person stopping a mass shooting, but hey, it's happened. But the thing is, in that report, within the first couple pages, they mention that the police arrived in time to stop the shooting like 40% of the time. And as a matter of fact, depending on the statistics that you choose, it was kind of confusing because the numbers didn't really add up to the same result in both those spots. But depending on how you see it and which numbers in that report that you choose to go by, the police arrive on time to stop the shooting between like 38 and 40%, or it was in the somewhere in the 30s to 40%. Basically, you're better off flipping a coin. Like, if heaven forbid you're stuck in the middle of an active shooter situation, you're better off flipping a coin than you are relying on the police to show up and save you. And I found it ironically fitting that in their quest to disprove a common trope that you hear gun rights advocates say, which is the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun, they provided a document that also proves another trope that you hear often, which is when seconds count, the police are minutes away. And I didn't verify this myself, but I think that in the case of the Paris attacks, like the police showed up something stupid like 2 hours later or something. So there are no obvious answers, but I know what an obvious answer isn't, or what obviously isn't a solution, which is to rely on the police. And I remember telling this to my friend in the same conversation, like, how many people have to die before we realize that the police can't keep us safe? Every mass shooting, no matter what you think of the gun control or gun rights issue, is pretty damning condemnation. It's a demonstration of the government's inability to keep us safe. And if you want to help protect people, the majority of the time when the shooter didn't commit suicide on his own terms, it was stopped by someone who was on the scene, armed or unarmed. So one thing is for sure, we can't rely on the cops. So before summarizing again my 3-sentence position on gun rights, I want to thank you for watching this video. Please like and share. Please leave comments below. I'm really curious to know what your thoughts are. As I said at the beginning, I think this is one of the more important topics that I've covered on this channel. So please, give me some feedback. Subscribing to my YouTube channel would help me out a lot. I would really appreciate it if you haven't done so yet. And yeah, you'll find links to Twitter and Tumblr and all that below. So yeah, to summarize it up, anyone sane wants to stop anyone insane from getting access to guns. An insane person who wants a gun and is motivated enough will get one. And the best way to protect everyone from insane people with guns is to make it as easy as possible for sane people who want guns to get them.